RSA offers business-driven security solutions that provide organizations with a unified approach to managing digital risk and designed to effectively detect and respond to advanced attacks, manage user access control, and reduce business risk, fraud, and cybercrime. For a limited time, get mobile multi-factor authentication from RSA Secure ID Access for free to help secure your remote or dynamic workforce long-term. Leverage push notification, biometric, and one-time password authenticators to secure access to your cloud applications, on-premises systems, legacy systems, privileged accounts, and more at no cost for 6 months. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/RSA Security. Did you know that over 63% of cyber breaches are caused by a third-party vendor? CyberGRX is on a mission to modernize third-party cyber risk management. Built on the market's first third-party cyber risk exchange, CyberGRX arms you with fast and accurate data, a proven and innovative approach, so you can make rapid, informed decisions and confidently engage with partners. Learn how partnering with CyberGRX will help you become cyber certain. Visit securityweekly.com/CyberGRX.
Welcome back to Security and Compliance Weekly, our first episode of the new year 2021. Hey, if you have any specific guest or topic suggestions that you'd like to share with us, you can do so by submitting your suggestions for guests at securityweekly.com/guests. There's a form there, fill it out. If you have suggestions for topics, probably drop it on the Discord or email us. Or if there's a place to put it on the forum, I forget, you can write it in there. Anyway, we review those regularly and we'll get back to you once we've reviewed it. Also, obviously, we have officially wrapped up all the recordings for webcasts and trainings from 2020. They are available on the website, securityweekly.com/on-demand, if you're wanting to go back and see them again, or if you missed any of them, you are welcome to do so. All right. We spent the first time sort of looking back at 2020 and the dumpster fire it was, and sharing a little bit of the highs and lows, both personally and professionally, of the year. Had a pretty decent chat going on the Discord at the same time, and I'm woefully behind. I think I've probably missed half of it. But we want to spend this segment sort of looking forward, not necessarily a prediction show, because I think most of us aren't really into that. That's just what marketing does for filler, not the disparage marketing that we all do. But some of the things that we miss from the previous year, when are we going to get to see them again? Like conferences. How do we deal with working remotely when things start opening up again? Do we go back to the way things were, or is this the new normal? And one specific question that I did see on the Discord, and we'll try to bring that up, a little bit of a commentary from a compliance perspective on the whole SolarWinds things, which we're hoping to devote an entire episode to that discussion next week. But I promised Scott that I would let him ask Priya his question that I cut him off from the first episode. So Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Jeff. Hey Priya, thanks for joining us for the second half of the show. One of the topics that we didn't get to cover in 2020, but is near and dear to a lot of consultants' hearts, is the topic of legal shield. When we're doing work inside of a business that's either been breached or we've been hired by lawyers, a lot of people in the industry don't really understand from a legal perspective what that means and how to make sure that they're adequately protected. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So first, we'll back up a little. So under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, anything you say can be used against you unless you assert your right not to incriminate yourself. And that means that anybody that you say something to can be called to testify and report what you said. And that's one of the reasons you have an attorney-client privilege, is so that you can communicate with your lawyer, and your lawyer cannot be called to act as a witness against you and relay what you have said at any point. And it's also obviously integral to the trust, because the way your lawyer will guide you has a lot to do with the information that they learn from you. And it's not just the communications, it's also confidences and things sort of you learn that aren't necessarily communications. And so when a lawyer meets with a client, the lawyer's job is to make sure that that privilege is completely secure. I just learned the word pen test from you. So sort of that is how the law has developed, right? So people have had a third party sitting in the room, and that person later gets tested as to whether or not they were covered by the privilege, whether that third party is someone's spouse. For example, if you represent an individual and their spouse comes to the meeting, it's actually not privileged because there's a third party in the room. Anyone who's not the client who is present, and who's not a lawyer who is present to a communication, destroys the privilege and makes that communication available to anyone who asks. So, for example, when there are group emails and the lawyer is emailing the client, but then other people are added in copies. And I know this happens in companies a lot because it's commonplace for lots of people to be copied for efficiency purpose. Often that copying destroys the privilege, or somebody forwards the communication with the lawyer to somebody outside the zone of the privilege, someone who's not strictly the lawyer or the client. So one of the ways that lawyers have to function is to bring in outside experts, whether they are anything from a translator to an investigator to a forensic accounting expert to, in this particular question, a cyber expert. It is just such a common pitfall that companies don't go through a lawyer to hire an expert, because without that lawyer, there is no bridge to connect the privilege. So you end up with the company having discussions with someone who then has to report what that discussion was. So the proper way to do it, and any savvy lawyer, and especially criminal defense lawyers, are very cognizant of the privilege because we're constantly guarding our clients' confidences. Any competent lawyer is someone who will hire the expert for the client. So, for example, let's say I was representing Quiznos. I don't know why I just thought of them. And they had a hack. I would not have Quiznos go out and find a cybersecurity company to do an investigation to figure out what happened. I would, even if they located the company, if they have a relationship, I would be the one that had the engagement, that I hired the expert to assist me. I would have an agreement with the expert that says, you are working under my direction. Everything you do is my work product. You cannot disclose this to anybody. And regardless of who pays, whether it's directly paid by the client, the relationship, the contract has to be with me for the umbrella of my privilege and the attorney-client privilege to fall over the expert. And so this is, as I said, happened several times, in that companies jump, and instead of having one point of contact that then orchestrates and organizes everything, they have within the company lots of people, multiple buckets trying to put out the fire. So you find this person to do that, you find that person to do that, and all those wonderful people become witnesses against you, whether or not they want to, because there's no privilege protecting anything that they do, anything they find, any report that they write. So that's one answer of when an outside forensic company or cybersecurity company would be covered, is they have to go through the lawyer, and the relationship has to be through the lawyer. The second question, which I think you're asking, of who is covered, is tricky, because a company can be a client and does have a lot of rights. It does not have the exact same rights as an individual. So there is no for example, right against Fifth Amendment right in the same way for a company. So who is the client is always a question. So generally it's the management, the C-suite of a company who are the individuals, because obviously somebody has to communicate with the lawyers, who are the individuals who are then speaking on behalf of the company. So for example, conversations, whether that conversation is an email or in person or a text or anything, any sort of communication between the CEO, the CFO of a company and the lawyers would be considered privileged, and would be the privilege not of those individuals, but of the company. And so then you have the tricky moment of the company can waive the privilege. And so often those individuals are speaking on behalf of the company with the lawyer, but it benefits the benefits the company later to throw one of those people under the bus. And the company can say, we're happy to disclose what this person has reported to our lawyers. And that person doesn't have the ability to say, but that's a privilege between me and that lawyer, because that person is not the holder of that privilege. It was the company. So these are all very complicated issues that surround and sort of weave through all discussions that should be had whenever there is a cybersecurity issue in any company. Because as you said before, that forensic report, if not done right, might as well be published in the paper, and everyone will see it, from the regulators to your stockholders to your customers. So it has to be handled the right way.
And this discussion, if for no other reason, is why I want to go to a security conference and party with a bunch of lawyers and just watch.
Same here. Same here.
I would and not listen too closely, and certainly not have any audio equipment.
We should all get together and do a cyber panel at one of the legal conferences when they start back up.
Absolutely, you guys should.
Jeff and Josh.
And with you, Priya, just to be clear.
Yes, with you, yes. Jeff and Josh, directly to you guys, did you, in the last 5 years, ever think that a law firm would be employing penetration testers? Did you ever think that was going to happen?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. I know, Scott. I know I'm senile. All right, shut up.
No. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, no, I said it for you. Anyway, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was actually discussing with a guy I know. He started a company called blackchambers.nyc, I think it was, or blackchamber.nyc. And it was just that. It was a law firm with an attached penetration testing firm. Mm-hmm. I also know one here in Philly that's now defunct, but it was a law firm and a penetration testing firm to do exactly that, to use Legal Shield for penetration tests and so on and so forth. And that was at least 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, no problem.
So let's take this in a different direction. What is covered under Legal Shield? What is not covered under Legal Shield?
So what's covered is both communications and work product. So a lawyer's work product is anything that I would do in an effort to represent my client in that matter. So everything from I interview people, I take notes, I do research, to I hire outside people to do that. So whether it's an investigator, or a specific company like a penetration testing company. So, what's interesting is the law is always trying to balance public good over this specific problem. So there are lots of things that are in Lawyer Shield, like for example, settlement communications. If you have an issue with someone and you say, "Look, I'll pay for the accident," that person shouldn't be allowed to use that statement against you, and they're not allowed to, because the law actually wants people to sort it out, right? They want someone to say, "I'm sorry, I'll take care of it," without that being used against them later. And so in that same way, the law wants companies to better their product, right? Whether it's a medical pharmaceutical company that is required to do tests to make sure that their product is the safest for the public, or whether it's a computer company, Microsoft, anyone, that is offering a service that's also trying to improve the product. The law wants, the public good is for that product to be better. And so for the work that's done in order to test to make sure you have the best product, that work should be covered by privilege, because otherwise what you encourage is a slippery slope of no one working to improve it, because they'd be afraid that, you know, all science is about failure until you stop failing, right? So they're worried that they would encourage people to not try and to not improve the thing, and therefore that work done under the auspices of a lawyer would be privileged if you do have if you do have people who have been engaged specifically to test your product. You know, if it's done the right way, then it is privileged. If it's not done the right way, then it just becomes part of a lawsuit against you down the line, which is just, that doesn't seem right.
So let me ask you this then. When somebody goes to hire a lawyer, there used to be the old moniker of "pay me $1, I'll protect you," right? Does that still apply in an instance like this? I mean, I know it's a lot more than just $1, but if somebody said, "Hey, I have a business, I need a lawyer, can I pay you $1 and, you know, retain you as counsel?" Does it still work like that?
So you actually didn't need to pay anyone. The attorney-client privilege attaches as soon as someone asks me for legal advice. So you can imagine cocktail parties with me are really fun. Like trying to get out of their lease.
Or legal conferences at the happy hour.
It's not that the existence of the lawyer, it has to be done under the direction of the lawyer. So,
okay.
You know, if your company is having a discussion of how do we improve our product, this is the reason people get general counsel internally or outside to direct all of it, so that it is done under the direction of counsel, and then all of the product, whether it's reports or anything, are clearly marked as attorney work product. So it's not just that I exist somewhere in your Rolodex, and maybe I'll have to explain to your people what a Rolodex is also.
Right.
I'm like the resident person from the past. But it's that I'm the one that's directing it, and I'm the one then analyzing it and giving you advice on what to do with it.
So the question that we're getting in Discord from M, does an NDA even apply if a person is called to testify? Like, so if there are quote unquote NDAs in place, and it's a very stoic moniker that we use all over business, does an NDA apply to court cases, let alone legal shields?
No, an NDA, every NDA has either written in it or it's assumed that it is not a shield to a legal requirement to testify. So, you know, whether you do a settlement agreement with someone or whether people on their own write an NDA, generally, if lawyers are involved, the NDAs or the settlement agreements always say nothing from this about this will stop a court. And that's true. A court can, aside from legally recognized privileges, a court can require anyone to testify.
What
all the NDA does is stops that person from speaking without a court order.
And going into basic knowledge of NDAs and business workings and such, right? Dealing with an NDA, the court takes a view, and tell me I'm wrong here because I really want you to. The court takes a view on NDAs as to a litmus test that they have to survive to be enforceable. Is that correct?
To say that again, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So for an NDA to be enforceable, it has to it has to be constrained to a couple of years. There has to be certain language in it. Like there are certain tests for an NDA to be enforceable, correct?
So NDAs are a matter of state law. So in the United States, you know, we currently have 50 states and then federal law. Every state decides locally a lot of issues, including things like whether an NDA is enforceable, would come down to the jurisdiction that you're in. Various courts in various states have different requirements. So sometimes, which is why, people typically have a lawyer draft one to make sure it is enforceable. But whatever the NDA says, there's no way it would trump a court order. I mean, even the Fifth Amendment can't trump a court order, because if they immunize you, you have to testify. So there is no NDA that would ever stop a court from ordering. The only sort of, I think the only privilege that might be above a court order might be the presidential executive privilege. But I think outside of that, there's nothing.
We might
that a
be
court
testing
can't
that soon.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
That's actually fascinating. We literally might be putting that to the test in the next, 20 days or so?
Right. But so that's an interesting example, because whereas the conversations of the president, he can claim privilege, when you make a phone call to someone, if that person is in a state where it's a one-party consent state, meaning only one person has to agree that the call will be recorded, so the person recording you can do it, there goes your privilege, because you chose to call them. So it's very interesting.
Now, does that also go for transcripts? Like, so if you and I had a call, Maryland's a two-party consent to record, but what about transcribing?
Transcription is the same as the recording. It's just a convenient way to process the word. So a transcript is never the evidence. A transcript is just an assistance to help you hear the evidence, which is the tape recording. So the issue is not whether the transcript is admissible. It's whether the recording is admissible.
Okay. Josh, when we were in break, there was somebody that had put something up about what's failing to be under Legal Shield. Can you talk about that just for a quick second?
Okay, sure. I have to go find it.
Sorry to throw you under the bus.
In the meantime,
not the intent. Go ahead, Jeff.
We could talk about, what are we looking forward to in 2021? Professionally, personally.
Oh my God. Okay, a shot in the arm at some point. Two shots in the arm, 1 month apart. Let's be clear.
2 shots in the arm. And
a neat little card that'll let me get on a plane safely.
No, that'll be your phone, and it will be on blockchain.
We'll see.
More than possession of that little card, assurance that everybody has to have the card to get on the plane. How's that?
I would love that so
what
much.
What do you think is the first time you're going to get on a plane again? Customer visit, vacation, or some sort of security event?
ShmooCon got canceled already. Got canceled a while back. So January's off.
So you fly.
Honestly, B-Sides DC is the one that's talking about doing an in-person with virtual. B-Sides Delaware is talking about doing an in-person with virtual. I don't think if it's before roughly August, just no, not getting on a plane. I'm not going there. I don't even think DEF CON, I'll be very honest with you, I don't think DEF CON's going to be in person this year.
Yeah,
I think they're going to do safe mode again.
I think that's consensus that we're not going to Vegas this summer still. I wanted to mention, because we brought it up in the first episode, I don't personally like the virtual conference experience, but there were a lot of conferences this past year that pulled it off, did it well. And I think the upshot, and we're talking about essentially a hybrid model in the new world, the post-apocalypse world that we're going to live in, and I think that is a good thing. So a conference like ShmooCon that has been so hard for people to get into because of the limit on ticket sales and how fast they go and so on and so forth, and I think ShmooCon actually was simulcasting technically before the lockdown, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they simulcast.
Whether they charge for it or not, I don't know. But
nope.
Josh, you're in charge of that, aren't you?
You're in charge of that, aren't you? the streaming of the content of the presentations for many of the conferences, that maybe they didn't do it in the past, but because they figured out how to do a virtual conference, it's easy for them to do it in the future. I think that'll be good. Myself personally, my least favorite thing about conferences in general is the presentations. I go for the networking. I go for the hanging out with people, seeing people, and I'll occasionally go to talks if it's like somebody I know, I want to support them. But generally speaking, that's not why I go to a conference, which is why I think it was so hard for me to get into the virtual experience in the past year.
Talks at conferences?
Exactly.
They have talks at these things? I didn't know that, man. Oh my God.
I know. Well, you're always doing the capture the flags and all the other activities.
Well, speaking of which, we should, as much as we're sitting back saying, well, we should be involved in legal conferences, Priya, you need to come to cyber conferences with us.
Oh God, yeah, that'd be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear Lord, that'd be fun.
We'll put your
UCS
cocktail con to the test.
Oh, when you take out your flip phone, there'd be people going, "That's awesome. That's so secure because it's not a smartphone." There'd be people like totally
would love it.
Yeah, the question about where I go on a plane, I think I would go to Africa. I would like to go see some animals that aren't in my house for a while. Just
It's a vacation me time type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. It's not a bad idea. Yeah. We've tempted the idea of renting an RV. I mean, it's a dream and a wish, but to take a 3-month cross-country trip just to see all the friends we've missed.
Well, let me ask the question in a different way, and I'm sorry, Priya, that you're not going to be able to respond to this, but so for Scott and Josh and anybody that wants to throw their opinion up on the Discord, what, if any, of the security conferences do you think will never go live again?
InfoSec World is one of them, right? Realistically, we're all realizing that travel's probably not going to be ready to go till fall of this year, if not next year. Yeah. So in the fall this year,
I'm asking the question. Do you think there's any conferences that just aren't going to come back?
Yes. There's quite a few that won't come back because when you lose momentum, it's tough to come back. It's not easy.
I was working with Adrian Crenshaw and a couple other people trying to put together Hoosier HackerCon, which was to replace DerbyCon, and we were going to throw it in the general same vicinity as Derby around the same time, and because of the pandemic, all of that just fell right through the floor. A lot of conferences have been struggling with trying to retain the hotel agreements, and just as much as the hotels have been struggling with trying to have people come in that are usually traveling, that are usually sightseeing. So, of course, conferences aren't going to be coming back. Which ones survive, which ones don't, it still has yet to be seen. What we're thinking with travel starting in the fall, that September, October, November is just going to be chock full of conference after conference after conference after conference. And the real question is, what is your burnout tolerance?
Well, I think there's more, Scott, if I can throw a couple more pieces in there, add on to what you're saying. Yeah. I think air travel is going to be more expensive because remember, the reason that we had cheap air travel was because there were so many flights going everywhere. The volume was monstrous. Now the airlines are going out of existence. They've lost, what did we lose? 97% of all air travel was gone. Hotels are going away. There's the simple logistics, if you will, of traveling to a conference and staying there, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be simple. It's not going to be, I can do a direct flight from here to there. No, it's back to the hub and spoke. We've lost all of those, like extraneous flights, if you will, that are $50, $100, $200, whatever. It's like, no, I'm sorry. That's $1,000 trip. Ooh, that's going to make people think. Just pointing it out.
Yeah, somebody made a good point on the Discord, and I lost it already. But they were talking about, well, maybe some B-sides won't be coming back, or maybe they'll go strictly virtual. But then they said, but that kind of defeats the purpose of B-sides because, a lot of the security conferences and B-sides in particular, the reason they exist is because people wanted to have a local to their area security conference experience or meetup experience, which is a great point because that is a reason for a lot of them to come back. I think a lot of sort of the middle tier security conferences, I could see them just not ever coming back just because, like you said, Josh, they just kind of lose the momentum. Hopefully that's not going to be the B-sides experience, but what most of us or many of us like about the security conferences is the networking, the hanging out with people, all the extra activities, besides the talks, the CTFs, sorry. I'm still on vacation. The lockpicking villages, the car hacking villages, and so on and so forth. There's so many extra things to do at these cons, and then there's the hanging out. Especially when can you imagine getting Priya to Frankie's in Vegas? That's going to be so much fun.
Oh,
I remember being at SchmooCon.
You've never been to Vegas?
No, I said I used to live in Vegas.
Oh,
yeah, where?
So did you?
For 4 years. I lived off the strip from 4th to 8th grade.
Oh, you're kidding?
Okay, so you probably weren't hanging out in Frankie's. Do you know what Frankie's is?
I don't know what Frankie's is.
Okay, Frankie's
you have to experience it.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to 2022 when we're all in Vegas.
Who introduced you to Frankie's? Who introduced you to Frankie's, Jeff?
Jack.
Jack introduced everybody to Frankie's.
Yeah,
Frankie's Tiki Bar.
Not me.
Yep.
Really?
Nope.
Huh.
It was Ray Bango, works for Microsoft.
Oh, cool.
Well, Jack introduced Ray to that, so you get secondhand for Jack. It's okay.
Remember,
you go to Frankie's with everybody.
It's kind of like it's a Kevin Bacon type of thing. Only insert Jack Daniel.
Well, if I can chime in, and I know I've never been to your conferences, but the points, Josh, that you were making are really great, which is that the cost is higher in every way, not just financial, of going to one of these conferences now. Perhaps things will shift to people taking the initiative to have more localized regional conferences more often. And creating smaller versions like I forgot Hack Attack. Did you say Hack Attack? But doing that in sort of NYC and having kind of a traveling thing as opposed to a bigger one, and maybe people will create better networks of colleagues and new friends that you can actually see more than once a year, and maybe that'll be something pretty great that comes out of this.
So a lot of the B-sides are local, but I love small conferences. I get to spend time with friends. I get to go anywhere we vacation. We write off the trip because we always go to a conference when we go there. We honeymooned and went to B-sides Asheville. Okay.
That's cool.
And we wrote off part of our honeymoon as a business expense. It was awesome.
That's a great venue anyway, just going to Asheville.
Speaking about all these conferences and everything, if I could share one of my best memories, for those of you who don't go to InfoSec conferences, you don't know all of the hackers and who their handles are. There's a hacker with a handle of CP. Josh, I think you're going to remember this, and Jeff, I think you will as well. Priya, I'm sure you won't know this. One of my fondest memories is being outside of SchmooCon and watching CP run around with speakers that glow, like speaker backpacks that were handmade, that glowed. They were in memory of Rance. Rance was an unbelievably great individual. And it's one of those things that I know I'm never going to forget. And then walking inside and watching the entire conference who's at LobbyCon raising a glass. It's one of those indelible moments that just will never ever leave my head.
Not just raising a glass, but was it I forget now, white or a black Russian?
White Russian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rance. I still have the coin. I got carried almost everything.
Well, and I'm a little bit different because of my my fortunate happenstance the last couple years of becoming a somewhat public figure. I go to a lot of conferences. I've been doing 15, 20 conferences a year for, except for last year, but the previous 4 or 5 years, I was hitting 15, 20 conferences a year. So I was going to the big ones, but I was also going to a lot of the regional ones and I did a lot of B-sides. I think in 2019, I spoke at I think it was 5 different B-sides. And the local ones, I wouldn't even bother speak. I just try to go and volunteer just because I just want to go hang out. So CP and his backpack with the lights and the sounds, I've seen him probably at 20 conferences with those things. To me, it's like, oh yeah, those things, I remember them. They're full. But there's a lot of people there that are like, wow, that's so cool, because they're seeing it for the first time. So I've had a lot of white Russians, let's just say that, over the last couple of years. So there's all that and I don't know how much longer I'm going to go to conferences physically. I miss a lot of them, and I want to go back because I want to see people. I want to see the people. Anyway, that's me. Round the horn. Any parting thoughts? Not predictions, but things that you're looking forward to or hoping will happen in 2021. Give us something to look forward to. Some hope. Anyone? Round the horn.
All right, I'll go.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing my friends. I'm looking forward to feeling safe in my own home and in my own neighborhood. I'm looking forward to getting to where people are doing the fundamental of security and compliance and business and understanding all of them. I love the new growth of CISOs and CIOs that understand that huge 3-legged stool that we're just talking about now, and that do a great job with it. I'm looking forward to 2021 being a blowout year in terms of growth for both personally and professionally, both with my daughter, my wife with her new job, myself with Scott and our new product. And I look forward to growing back together with all of our friends.
I'll go next. I look forward to getting back into court and trying cases and fighting the good fight, and hopefully getting justice for people. That's all been paused, and I am sort of chomping at the bit to get back in there and do some good.
Cool. Scott?
Echoing a lot of the above, making new friends, seeing old ones. For a lot of people, this time has been extremely tough. We've had to change systemically the way that we do things, and to be able to see all of that get back to old routine, but also including the new way that we've changed, would be really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. I guess what I'm most curious about as the future unfolds is how much going back to the way things were actually happens. Are we ever going to do things completely like we did them in the past, or how much are they going to be different? And I think some of the different is going to be improvements, like we were talking about conferences, doing things virtually and simulcasting as well as going live. I guess for me, what I'm looking forward to most at a personal level, it's going to actually see my new granddaughter and not have to wear a mask and do all that baby stuff. Professionally, I got back into consulting after my foray into the vendor side of the InfoSec world. I went back to consulting because I missed going to customer sites and meeting people and meeting new people and sort of hacking the organizational structures and learning the behaviors and how things work. And security is the same thing from company to company. It's the company dynamics and it's the company culture that changes, and that's where I find the challenge. I missed that I have a less of an opportunity, or maybe it's a skill that I haven't learned yet, of doing that in a virtual sense. I miss going to client sites. So that I'm looking forward to when I can go back to client sites and sit down with companies that are struggling to make security work, struggling to make compliance work, struggling to understand how the two work together. And I come in, on my white stallion over the hill and save the day.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that buzz? That. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Those of us that are available and have a Discord account, we'll jump over momentarily to the After Hours channel so we can chat with some of you guys that have been listening. It's been a great conversation on the Discord. We're trying to line up a couple special guests for next week, and we're going to devote the show hopefully to the whole SolarWinds thing that happened towards the end of last year. One of the questions on the Discord, we definitely want to bring this up, and it's something that I've been actually pondering even on my vacation time the last couple of weeks, is, what is the impact of something like SolarWinds and that type of level attack, breach, compromise, whatever you want to call it, and I think it's still debatable what we call it. How does compliance help, hinder, hurt, build a false sense of security, anesthetize, vaccinate companies against these types of attacks? So that is the goal for next week's episode. Hope you can join us. Until then, it's Happy New Year. Looking forward to experiencing 2021 with you guys as it unfolds, and appreciate you listening and watching and participating on Security and Compliance Weekly. Take care.